Perhaps a better title for this would be Faraway Places. That's the song that kept running through my mind throughout the vacation, one that I played once or twice during the vacation. We saw some wonderful places. It was a great adventure for us, and I hope you enjoy seeing some of the wonderful sights from this vacation. Indochina is almost exactly halfway around the world from our home in Spring, Texas. This slide shows our route that we took, which was flying out west. We used EVA or EVA Airlines, which I would heartily recommend, into Taipei, and then from Taipei into Hanoi, and on the way back we went from Bangkok to Taipei. The longest flight was 16 and a half hours long, longest we'd ever taken. In total, we spent almost 43 and a half hours in the air, flew some 20,500 miles, had 10 flight segments, 3 road trips, and 4 river trips. So quite a journey. The countries we visited in Indochina, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand are shown on this slide overlaying on the United States to give a sense of scale for how far we traveled in the trip, the area that we covered, which would basically be from Oklahoma to North Dakota, through Colorado, a bit of Wyoming, and in Montana. So we covered a lot of area in the trip. Although small compared to the United States, the population is a little over half, so the population density is almost 7 times that of the United States. This slide shows where we were at various times. It took us a couple days to get there. We flew into Hanoi, then Ha Long Bay, next to Hoi An, Ho Chi Minh City, Phnom Penh, Siem Reap for Sharon's birthday, Luang Prabang, then one night in Bangkok, and then home on February 12th. So that's basically the route we took. I basically set up the itinerary of things we wanted to see, the duration of the trip, and then worked with a local operator out of Vietnam called Authentic Asia Tours, who then booked the hotels, the in-country flights, and arranged for local tour guides. These are pictures of each of the guides we had at the locations that we visited, and they were uniformly outstanding. Had excellent knowledge, were good fun to be around, provided us a lot of insights, and just made the trip go way better than we could have possibly accomplished on our own. We arrive in Hanoi shortly after noon. After clearing customs, we meet our guide and driver, then drive to our hotel. After unpacking, we take a walk through the old quarter to get a cut pulse massage at a spa that was highly recommended on the internet. The walk to the spa immerses us in what seems like a different world. The people and traffic density is much higher than where we live and higher than any place we have visited. The traffic and crossing streets in particular takes some getting used to. Traffic flows efficiently, and we see only one minor accident during the trip. But there appears to be no rules at all at first. But they drive to avoid an accident and divert or brake to avoid each other while still progressing. They are courteous and considerate drivers. A short video follows that Sharon shot while we were taking a tri-shot ride. This is a 2-person cart pulled by a bicycle. It'll give you a sense for the traffic and how it flows. first full day in Hanoi, we took a walking tour around Hoan Kiem Lake, and I'll show a few slides from that walking tour. We first headed south around the lake and into the French Quarter, and one of the monuments or features of the French Quarter is St. Joseph's Cathedral. Well, these are pictures inside and out, and luckily there was a wedding going on while we visited the cathedral. The French had a fairly profound influence on Vietnam in their 100-year colonial period from 1862 to 1954. One of the influences was the Catholic religion. Currently, about 20% of the population remain Catholic. The other major influence was in the architecture as well as in the written language. They switched from Chinese characters to basically the Roman characters that were implemented over the time of the French rule. Two more photographs from our walk. The one on the left is a lady, just street vendor. These were everywhere. And one of the reasons for so many street vendors is that income from these small street shops and are not taxed, so that leads to them being a good form of income. On your right, you'll see egg coffee, which we had at the restaurant where it was invented. It's a very strong Vietnamese coffee, and on top is a egg yolk and sweetened milk mixture, and it's really delightful that you mix the coffee into the sweetened egg yolk and enjoy just a really rich and delicious cup of coffee. This is a photograph entering Tran Quoc Pagoda. It was the oldest Buddhist temple in Hanoi. The original temple dates back, I believe, to the 6th century. It was moved to this location much later. There was a ceremony going on inside while we were there, and I'll show you a little snippet of the chanting from that ceremony. Đều biết được các cung điện trên trời giữa chung sai khác cấp. Đều biết được các cung điện trên trời giữa chung sai khác cấp. Hòa bóng trạng nghèo nghe hương đều biết được các điện vườn trên trời các nhà đều pháp đường ở trong. One of the unexpected surprises of the trip was experiencing the excitement of the Vietnamese people over a soccer championship game. The national under-23 men's soccer team was playing Uzbekistan for the Asia Championship on Saturday afternoon in China. They had never reached the championship game before. Hanoi was alive with excitement, and Vietnam flags were flying everywhere. Our guide gave us a Vietnam champion head banner, which we wore most of the day. Strangers would ask to have their picture taken with us. We got lots of smiles. The picture on the left is us at lunch, where the wait staff asked for a picture. The picture on the right is of the crowd at one of the open-air big screen viewing locations. This slide is the first courtyard in the Confucian Temple of Literature. Off to your left are stone tablets which list the name of all of the students that attended each year commencing in 1442 and for 300 years thereafter. The emphasis upon education can be traced to the influence of the Confucian religion and to this university, the first university in Vietnam in particular. The last building in the complex contains 3 altar shrines to Confucius and to his disciples. The second to the last stop on our anniversary day, this being our 48th anniversary, we celebrated in Hanoi, was the Thai Long Water Puppet Theater. It's unique to this area and dates back to the 11th century. Afterwards, we walked to a wonderful meal at a restaurant called the Green Tangerine. From Hanoi, we took a 4-hour van ride from our hotel to Ha Long Bay. Ha Long means descending dragon. The islands in this bay are limestone karst towers. The bay has been designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Our tour boat is shown in this picture. Our cabin was on the top deck. It has a balcony and a picture window on the opposite side, and relative to any other ship that we've been on, the room was used is roughly 25 foot by 25 foot, including the bathroom. The video that follows of Ha Long Bay was taken from our balcony. The weather was overcast with intermittent showers all the time we were there, but the views were really still a wonder. We took a side trip from Melissa to a pearl farm. The series of pictures, basically, which start at the upper left, show us our tour that we made of how the pearls are produced. It's basically a process that takes 5 years to make a jewelry quality pearl. That includes an insemination process. It's really quite fascinating how it's done. They'd have a relatively low yield despite all their best efforts. The gal that gave us this tour was really quite entertaining. We had good fun on the tour, and afterwards I bought some earrings for Sharon for our anniversary. I took a short launch ride to what's called T-Top Island and then walked to the top to see an overlook. And I'll show a video of that in a little bit. It just shows you a good overview from the top, as well as just how many ships were at anchor in that area. During the night that we were at anchor, a fairly fierce storm blew up. Which was severe enough that they had to move the ship. I believe the anchor was pulling, so it was a really very noisy night for us, with not a lot of sleep, especially for Sharon. After we returned to Hanoi, we flew to Da Nang, and then from there we were driven about 40 minutes to Hoi An. Hoi An is yet another UNESCO site. It was an ancient port city with traders from Japan and China dating back to the 15th and 14th centuries. I planned our trip around being in Hoi An for a lunar festival, which happens on the full moon each month. The tradition is to light a candle in a small paper float and then to launch them with your wishes onto the river. We purchased 4 candles, rented a sampan, That's a ship that you can see along the sides of the river. And then we launched them with our wishes for ourselves and our grandchildren. These are some pictures taken at the Lunar Festival, Sharon, of course, at the right. And you see all the sampans out. You'll notice the eyes on the front of the boat, which are for good luck and to ward off evil spirits, to the right of Sharon's shoulder. And the elderly lady in the picture on the left, it was a lady that was selling the candles. This is a shot of the front of one of the lantern shots the night of the Lunar Festival in Hoi An. The Chinese traders would journey for a month by ship to bring their cargo to trade at Hoi An. They would stay 6 months and then return to China. We toured this hall of the Chinese congregation constructed in the 17th century by the Chinese traders. One of the most famous sites in Hoi An is the Japanese covered bridge constructed in the 16th century. It was constructed to connect the area where the Chinese traders lived on one side of this waterway with the Japanese traders on the other. This is the original structure and it's remarkably well preserved. This area floods seasonally up to near the top of the ground floor. The trading houses were equipped with hoists on the second floor to lift the goods and furniture up to the top floor during the seasonal river floods. We took one side trip from Hoi An to the site of Hindu temples constructed by the Champa people. The site contains several temples, all dedicated to the Hindu god Shiva. The stone and clay brick used to construct these temples was hauled 20 kilometers up a river from where the Champa people lived to this place of worship surrounded by mountains. The area is called My Son, which means beautiful mountain. These pictures show the back and front entrance of a temple at My Son. Only Hindu monks were allowed inside the temples, which contained a large stone feature for distribution of holy water. The temples are shaped like two praying hands cupped together in prayer. The picture on the left shows the interior of a temple with the praying hand shape. The bricks used to construct the temples last much longer than modern brick. The interior of the brick was made with rice straw in the clay so that it is more porous. Rainwater is quickly absorbed by this brick, but also quickly drains away and dries. The exterior of the brick was coated with resin, which was hardened by fires built around the temple once it was constructed. From Hoi An, we flew from Da Nang to Saigon, or Ho Chi Minh City as it is now named. I didn't include any pictures from our day tour of Ho Chi Minh City. Frankly, we both strongly preferred Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. We took a day trip from Saigon to the Mekong River Delta. On this trip, we've visited several villages and saw how people lived in local craft and industry. This included rice candy manufacture and coconut candy and utensil making, as well as brick manufacture. The picture on the left is a brick kiln made from the brick that was manufactured in this small local industry. The clay is gathered from the Mekong River. Fuel to fire the brick is from locally sourced coconut wood and rice hulls. The brick is fired for 15 days and then cools for another 15 days inside the kiln. The picture on the right is of us getting on our boat for a journey on the Mekong River. A video of a segment of the river trip follows. Shortly after we got on the boat, the captain cut a wedge out of the top of 2 freshly picked coconuts. I've tasted coconut milk several times, but never anything remotely as sweet and lovely as this. This is a shot I took of a lady along the Mekong River. For many, the way of life in the villages has not changed a great deal in centuries. And here's another shot of a friendly lady flashing us a peace sign as we passed on the Mekong River. Next, we took a short flight from Saigon to Phnom Penh, Cambodia. These are a couple of photographs taken inside the Royal Palace complex. The photo of us has the Royal Palace constructed in 1886 in the background. Phnom Penh sits at the confluence of 4 rivers and is a strikingly beautiful city. It has been called the Pearl of Asia. The picture on the left shows some of the details of the throne room roof. Note the sweeping lines of the roof feature the symbolized elephant trunks and honor their service to the Cambodian people. This is very typical of Cambodian architecture. The 4 faces on the spire represent the 4 faces of Brahma, the Hindu god of creation. We were impressed by the wonderful grounds, especially the wonderful fan palm on the right. We thought it must have been trained into this shape, but found that it grows this way naturally. We also toured the National Museum in Phnom Penh. This building houses Khmer statues and artwork spanning about 1,000 years, with many of the pieces from the 12th to the 14th century when the Khmer Empire covered most of Southeast Asia. The inset picture is of Buddha and Naga, the snake that legend has rescued him late in his life. Our next stop in Cambodia is Siem Reap. We stayed at a resort-style hotel called Siam Siem Reap. Through our booking agent, Mrs. Nguyen, the hotel knew that our anniversary and Sharon's birthday occurred during this trip. They decorated our bed with these towel swans and red roses in honor of our anniversary. Sharon was surprised and pleased when our hostess let us into the room to see how our bed was decorated. After arriving at Siem Reap, we set our alarm for 5 a.m. the next morning to meet our guide and driver at 5:30 for the drive to Angkor Wat to watch sunrise at this magnificent temple. Somehow I thought getting up so early would avoid the crowds and provide us with a more intimate view of this world-famous site at sunrise. Boy, was I ever wrong. The place was mobbed with everyone trying to get a picture without anyone else in it. We eventually backed away from the crowd to a spot on a rise where we could take it all in without the crush of the crowd and enjoyed a peaceful start to Sharon's birthday. What impressed me most of all about Angkor Wat was the scale of it. The temple walls are 1 mile long and about 3/4 mile wide. Outside of the walls is a moat, and outside of this is a defensive berm that's 2.5 miles on each side. 1 million people worked on the construction of the temple over a period of 37 years. Part of that time, construction was slowed because the army who helped build the temple was away in wars. The temple was constructed of sandstone that was moved 30 kilometers from the quarry to the construction site. The picture on the right is of, on the left rather, is of one of 4 cleansing pools at the 2nd level inside the temple. The picture on the right is of the archway adjacent to the exterior walls. As you look down, you can see the scale of just 1/2 of one wall surrounding the temple. At Angkor Wat, we watched a monk giving blessings to several Buddhists. After watching, I decided to make a contribution and seek a blessing. The monk is tying a string bracelet on my wrist prior to giving his blessing chant. The bracelets and the blessing are believed to bring good luck. The next temple we went to is called Tom Prom. It is near Angkor Wat, and it has been left with the fig trees that grew on and in the temple buildings. Vegetation invaded this temple and a few others because they rushed the construction. This rush was because the king was elderly when he was crowned and did not have a long life. They also used more porous sandstone late in the construction period of the temple complexes because the better, more harder sandstone had already been used. This temple was made famous as a set for the Angelina Jolie film Lara Croft Tomb Raider. We cut short our day of temple tours with one final stop at Bayonne Temple. We had got up at 5 o'clock and we needed a little bit of rest late in the afternoon. This temple is most remarkable for the faces of Buddha in the temple towers and the deep relief scenes cut into the sandstone in the walls surrounding the temple. If you look closely at these pictures, you can see the Buddha's faces in the temple towers. The scenes that are along the walls, which I'll show next, tell stories of the wars during the king's life and also of the king's life for which the temple is dedicated. This is a typical relief scene showing Khmer soldiers at war with their spears and their war elephants. We took a road trip from Siem Reap to the Tonle Sap Lake. This is the largest lake in Asia. It has a unique hydrology. During the rainy season, water flows through the lake into the Sap River and then later joins the Mekong River at Phnom Penh. In the dry season, the lake shrinks and water flows back from the Mekong River through the Sap River and into the lake. This is a photograph of a couple of young boys on styrofoam boats on Tonle Sap Lake. They live in a floating village that includes a school, stores, houses, and all other services of a small town. Over 1 million people live on floating villages like this on Tonle Sap Lake. After Siem Reap, we fly into Luang Prabang, yet another UNESCO World Heritage Site. Our flight arrives just after sunset. The mountains high above the level of our plane, the Mekong River below, and the orange sky is an incredible sight. I was looking forward to this last stop, but the view out my window on descent had me thrilled with the beauty of the place and exploring it in the days ahead. After getting our visa upon arrival in what can only be described as a chaotic scene, we meet our driver who takes us to check into our hotel outside of town on the banks of the Mekong River. The picture on the right was taken as we enjoyed a meal and watched the lights of the fishing boats below on the Mekong. It's hard to capture on film, but this was one of the most exotic and romantic meals of our life. The picture on the left shows the scene of the Mekong River from our balcony. The estate of Prince Fetsarov is on the grounds of this hotel. He chose this location for his estate because he loved the view of the Mekong River. He chose well. The next morning we meet our guide and take a tour of Luang Prabang. The city has a population of about 100,000 and contains 27 Buddhist temples. The population of Laos is 95% Buddhist. Over 70% of the men in Laos are monk novices at some time in their life. They enter the temple as a novice for education, both religious and secular. Only a small fraction of those who enter as a novice remain as a monk throughout their lives. This picture and subsequent slide pictures were all taken in Wat Sin Sukaram, the last of 3 temples we visited today. Our guide showed us pictures of his wedding photographs that were taken in this small shrine. It is a popular place for taking wedding photographs in Luang Prabang. He took the picture on the right of us looking out the window of the shrine. It may be my favorite picture of us ever. At the end of our tour today, we climbed 420 steps up to Fuzi Hill to wait for sunset. There was a small temple at the top and a rather large crowd waiting to see the sunset and take photographs. Afterwards, we walked down to the night market. The picture on the right is of the food stalls in the night market. This is a shot of the night market. We made one purchase there, a peace symbol made of aluminum recovered from bombs dropped on Laos during the Vietnam War. It will hang on our Christmas tree to remind us of this trip to Laos. Laos during the Vietnam War was the most bombed country per capita in the world ever. Since the war, 20,000 Laotians have been killed or wounded by unexploded ordnance dropped on them during the war. We ate lunch on this day at the same restaurant that President Obama stopped at and had coconut when he visited here and gave a speech in 2016. He left a very positive impression here with the Laotian people we talked to about him. Today we take a 33-kilometer trip up the Mekong River to the Pakao Caves. We are now in the dry season. The Mekong River is only half the width and depth it reaches in the rainy season. It is more treacherous to navigate now because of the boulders that are exposed when the water level is low. A few of them are visible in the video that follows. On the left is a restaurant we ate at across from the Pakao Caves. It's right at the water line and a boat's docked next to it. The picture on the right is the bamboo wharf our boat tied up to at the caves. It was not as dangerous as it looks, but it was tricky to navigate. In addition to the caves, we visit a village and see how they make dried seaweed in the sun. We also visited a place where rice wine and whiskey is made in a most primitive fashion. Also, we visited a place where homemade paper is made from the bark of tree. Primitive but lovely native crafts. Here are a couple pictures taken inside the Pakao Caves that contained over 4,000 statues of Buddha. Every morning before sunrise, the Buddhist monks walk through the street to gather alms in Luang Prabang. They must consume all the food that they gather that day. Any excess is redistributed to the needy. Monks and monk novices can only eat twice per day, once around 7:30 and once again about noon. Our driver and guide were both monk novices. The driver told us he was so hungry at night as a novice that he cried at first. He also tells us how happy he was to hear the gong in the morning to awaken the monks because he knew he would eat soon. Sharon captured this shot of me giving rice and banana leaf covered meat to the monk novices. The alms ceremony, the number of temples, and unique geography of the peninsula were all cited as reasons for designating Luang Prabang as a World Heritage Site. Two of the basic teachings of Buddhism are to live simply and to give charitably. Both tenets are on display in this ceremony. After breakfast following the alms ceremony, we take a road trip to Quang Si Waterfall, about an hour's drive south of Luang Prabang. En route, we stop at a small village where a new moon festival is taking place at the local temple. It was interesting to walk around. It reminded me somehow of any small town festival. It also illustrated how central the Buddhist religion is to life and to community life in Laos. On the way out, the girls who were taking admissions to the event posed with us for a picture. What follows is a picture of another village bringing a money tree into the festival. The Quang Si waterfall is a series of waterfall in a protected forest area. It is not nearly as deserted as these photographs show, but the waterfalls are really stunning. A couple of photographs of the natural beauty of the area. On the left, the main waterfall at Quang Si, and on the right, a picture taken on our last sunset at Luang Prabang as we enjoyed a beer and the scenery from a restaurant alongside the Mekong. Our last morning is spent touring more temples. We are frankly templed out at this time, but we both like the sayings of Buddha that were posted on the tree. We fly to Bangkok, arriving late in the afternoon. I had made reservations at the Breeze restaurant, about a 45-minute cab ride from our hotel. We delay the reservation when we are riding in from the airport after talking with the driver who tells us it will take longer to get to the La Boya Hotel than I expected. So we arrive around 7 p.m. and first go to the Sky Bar, the highest open air bar in the world. We are treated to a fireworks display near the hotel. The display is below our 62nd floor view. The picture below is the entrance to the Breeze restaurant. Very impressive and stunning entrance. We pause for a couple of pictures before being taken to our table. And here's the view from our table. What a meal, what a view, and what a great ending to a spectacular trip. No trip is complete without some discussion of the food. Wow! It was delicious every place we visited. Whether in a hut, a street stall, or at a high-end restaurant, the food was remarkably excellent everywhere we went. We only had one mediocre meal on board the Alyssa cruise. The rest were outstanding. A final thought that I'd like to share. There were many highlights to this trip, but first and foremost to both of us were the people. They were kind and gentle, quiet and friendly. What we will remember most fondly is the people we met and how they live. They may not be rich in material goods, but they are rich in the things that matter. Peace.